Guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sonnet, the owner and creator behind Sonnet's Garden Blooms, and in today's video we are going to do a thrift to treasure. So normally I would say items that I've recently thrifted and we are going to turn them into beautiful treasures, but these are items that I've had in my stash for quite a while. Last Wednesday I pulled out a box, and on my live all my viewers were able to give me ideas and suggestions on what I should do to them. Now in today's video, I am taking those items and we are flipping them. So stick around and see what I've accomplished. For project one, I had these two galvanized containers for quite some time, and they were super cute. They were actually brand new when I thrifted them. I picked them up for $1.99 each. My vision for these is very simple. I'm going to put some twine around the top. I'm going to use Roycycle's catalog, and this is a new paper, and I absolutely love it because you can do so many projects with this. But I am going to take these little tags that I think I picked these up last Christmas. I used them on quite a few presents, and I had a few left over. I'm going to actually dangle a tag from each of these galvanized containers, and I am going to decoupage on a couple of these really beautiful images. So after looking everything over, I decided I wanted to use two different bird images on the tags because spring is right around the corner, and that's what I'm doing, trying to get all these springy type items to put in my booths. So I cut the pieces out, and then we're going to start decoupaging them on the tags. I start by breaking out liquid patina from DIY, and this is my favorite medium to use when decoupaging with Roycycled papers. I find that it just goes on so smooth and it really alleviates a lot of those wrinkles. I apply just a nice even layer to the entire piece, and then I start laying it down. Now, with a larger piece, I do work in sections, and I have shown that in previous videos where I do a starter strip. So I lay down some liquid patina, then I lay down my paper, I smooth it out, I lay down another section of liquid patina, I smooth out that section of the paper, and then continue to work my way down. It really helps alleviate a lot of those wrinkles. So if you do want to see that, I do have other videos where I do show that. Because this tag is so tiny, I just completely cover it with liquid patina. I line it up and I just start on top, and then I just rub it as I'm laying the paper down. So really, I didn't get any wrinkles, and because it was so small. So I did that to both of the tags. I let them dry very thoroughly, and then I'm going to go back and we are going to get rid of the excess paper. While those are drying, I am going to take this twine that I had picked up at Walmart, and I am going to apply it around the edge. I'm going to wrap it roughly 5 times around. I always use just a little starter strip of hot glue, and just every once in a while I add just a little dab of glue just to make sure it stays in place. And I will do that all the way around, and once I get that done, my tags should be dried. Now that the tags are ready, I broke out my sanding block, and in a downward motion, I just rubbed along the edge, and it creates the perfect crisp, clean edge and gets rid of any excess paper. I did that to both of the tags, and I am absolutely loving how these are turning out. So next I took a pen and I just popped that little hole back open on each, and then they were set to hang. Now these tags did come up with a little piece of twine, and I did use that. It was a little bit more difficult to work with. The ends did keep unraveling, so I had to keep twisting them. but I just fed through that twine through the hole, and then I looped it through one of the pieces of twine that I had wrapped around and tied a knot. And this project was so simple, but I believe it just really transformed both of these galvanized containers with just a little twine and a tag. For project 2, I had these metal containers in my stash for quite a while. I think initially I was going to put them in my booth maybe as is. After I got them home though, then I started having doubts and second thoughts. And so my vision today is, it started off, I was going to paint the bottom half white swan, and then I was going to paint the top half either faded burlap or like a darker color. I was going to go in and try to figure out that. So as the project got way, I did paint the bottom white swan, and then I ran out of white swan and I thought I had grabbed another container of white swan, and it turned out that container was vintage linen. So in the end, the bottom was vintage linen, and after I got that paint on, I actually liked it with that metal top, the way it was. I did like how it looked a bit rusty. So in the end, I kiboshed the idea of painting the top a specific color, and I just painted the bottom, and I really am liking how this is turning out. So the bottom, I did put 2 coats of vintage linen on the entire piece. I did let that dry very thoroughly, and I did not go back and wet distress it or do any distressing. I just wanted a solid white look. Now that it's completely dry, I am going in with Big Top, and I'm applying 1 even coat to all 3 pieces. I'm going to let that dry very thoroughly, and then we're going to wrap up this project. For the final touch on this project, I'm pulling out that same twine that I used in the last project, and I am going to just use the hot glue gun, put a little dab right there just to hold it, and then I'm going to wrap around just the 2 colors, just to, in case it's not perfectly straight, just kind of like conceals that. And I really like the look of the twine, that type of texture against the paint and the metal. The one thing I still have yet to do before the project is finished is I am going to clean off the tags off the bottom, and then I will also apply 2 coats of paint to the bottom and seal it, and then the whole project will be finished. For project 3, I actually picked all of these up for myself. I had actually grabbed all different sizes, colors, and I was going to hang these in my kitchen. I put a kibosh on that idea, and then they ended up in my stash. I was only going to flip one of them today, but then I decided, nope, I'm going to do 3 because I want to put 3 in my booth, and I am going to paint these all really fun spring colors. So the first one I painted DIY's Farm Fresh, and the nice thing about DIY paint is you can put this on virtually any surface and it is going to stick once you seal it and it is cured. So I did apply 2 coats of the Farm Fresh to this one, and then the next one I am going to show you what color. So here's the next one, and this one I really liked. I liked all the design of it and how small it was, but I did not like that color green at all. And I'm sure some of you are going to say you love it. It just was not the green that I liked. So I went ahead and I pulled out Queen Bee from DIY. I thought this was the perfect spring color, and it would also complement that Farm Fresh. So when I display these in my booth, I'm going to kind of layer them and display them together. So I really liked the Queen Bee. I did apply 2 coats on this one as well. Now, the third one, I really actually liked this green, and the color that I'm using, Gypsy Green, is basically the same color, but there was some like brown on here from baking. I just wanted to freshen it up a bit, so I applied, again, 2 even coats on this. I let it dry very thoroughly, and then I went back and I wet distressed each of them. You may be wondering why I wet distressed it. What I liked about it, like this one, it was white underneath, so I had a little bit of that white popping through, and it was already all like dinged up and scraped, and a little bit of that like silver pop through as well on the wet distressing, and I just randomly did it all over. Now, when I wet distressed this one, it was green underneath, and I started wet distressing it, and at first I was like, I don't know if I like this look, but after I got going, a little bit of that silver popped through, some of that green, and in the end, I actually really liked how this looked. So it does look aged, but fresh. So when I wet distressed this one, at first, just a little bit of green was popping through. After a while, though, I kind of liked the two-tone green that was popping through, and then a little bit of silver. So this one, I like all 3. They all are very unique in their own way, and once they all dry, then we're going to go back and we are going to completely seal them. To seal them, I am just using 1 even coat of Big Top to the entire piece, and I get into every little nook and cranny. So what I found was using the smaller brush was a lot easier, especially when I had to go down into that hole to seal it and to paint it. For project 4, I found this tray a while ago. It was brand new. It still had the tag on it. So I did remove the tag. I did opt out of painting the bottom. It did have like a faux wood look, so I just left that. But my vision here, it does have screws on the bottom, so I am unscrewing it and I am going to decoupage the top. Anytime I use decoupage paper, I do like to start with a white base. So I am applying 2 even coats of DIY's White Swan to this, and I'm going to let it dry very thoroughly and then come back and put the decoupage paper on. I am using Roycycle's decoupage paper called Grungy Subway. And all the supplies that I am using in today's video, you can find on my website at www.sonnetsgardenblooms.com, and they are all available. So with the Grungy Subway paper, I am trying to figure out an area where I get the most numbers and names on here. And I am trying to cut it so I can keep a big chunk of the paper to use on another project. So I cut 1/2 of the paper off, then I line it all up and I try to figure out exactly where I want to start at the top of the writing so I can keep as much of the bottom portion of the paper as well. Once I figure that all out, it's time to decoupage it on the base. And again, I start with just a strip of the liquid patina. I line up that paper, and from there, I lay it down, smooth it all out, lift that bottom portion of the paper up, and then I continue on again with more liquid patina, smooth it out, and I just work in sections just to try to alleviate as many of the wrinkles as possible. Now that the round is completely dry, I grab my sanding block, and just like I had with the tags, I just sand it in a downward motion all the way around the round, and it created a really nice, crisp, clean edge. After that, I grabbed the base and I lined up the holes on the bottom of the round with those those little clips on the bottom, reattached the screws, and this was a really simple and easy transformation with just a little bit of paper. Lastly, I forgot to completely seal it. This is a tray I figured people could possibly be putting drinks on here. So I did apply 2 even coats of Big Top to the piece and then let it dry very thoroughly, and it was completely done at this point. For project 5, I actually had this in my booth. It has a really weird texture on it. The tag that I actually had on it fell off because of the texture. And when they sent out an email of lost and found, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's my vase. So I don't even know how long it was in lost and found. I don't think it was in my booth very long. Somebody must have brought it up and said, hey, this doesn't have a tag tag on it, and it was sitting there. So with that said, I decided to refab it, and I am taking Farm Fresh, which is like a robin egg blue, it reminded me of. And I recently took a class from Royce and Lexi, and it was their Stencil 101 class, and they used a lot of this type of color, like a robin egg blue, and it just inspired me to transform this vase. So I am applying 2 even coats to this, and this is going to be a real simple flip today. 2 even coats to the entire piece. I'm going to let it dry, and then we're going to come back and just randomly wet distress it to bring back a little bit of that black. So here it's completely dry. Like I said, I just grabbed a wet rig, damp but not overly saturated, and just started rubbing here and there. Initially, I wanted to kind of get some of those round, there's like a texture on there. And finally, I just decided, instead of having that much paint come off, I'm just going to randomly like have the black just kind of peek through here and there. And that look I really liked. After that, I sealed it with Big Top, just 1 even coat, let that dry, and this project was complete. It's very cool how sometimes just changing the color of an object can really transform it and just really update it. For project 6, I grabbed this out of the Goodwill bins, and I was trying to figure out what I should do with it. I didn't know if I should wrap something over the top of that blue. I just didn't know. And in the live on Wednesday, everyone's like, cut it off, go right down to that wood bobbin. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, just cut it right off. I love those little wood bobbins, and I'm going to keep this for myself. So I started unwinding it, and I used my scissors, and let me tell you, this took forever because they had that thread or whatever it is on there really on there nice and tight. But in the end, I absolutely love this little wood bobbin, and it is going to go in some type of display in my home. For project 6, I had actually pulled this out of the Goodwill bins as well. I do have to put a base on the bottom. I am going ahead and painting the entire piece White Swan, and this is another one where I painted it White Swan for the first coat and then ran out of the White Swan, and when I grabbed that secondary jar, it was actually vintage linen. So it started off as White Swan and went to vintage linen, but I did apply 2 even coats, let both of those dry very thoroughly, and then I started to try to decide what I wanted to do from that point. So I decided to wet distress it. I pulled out a damp rag and just randomly distressed all the different edges here and there around that little hole where the nail fits. And I let that dry very thoroughly. And at that point, I thought I was finished. I really liked how the dark wood popped through here and there. It looked really aged and worn. But then as I was looking at it, I decided it needed a little bit of something on the front. Before I decided that though, I had clear coated it with Big Top, and once the Big Top was drying, that's when I decided it needed something else. So I pulled out the decoupage paper called Roycycles Catalog,
and I would try to figure out which little image I wanted on there, and I thought this would be perfect for it. It's a little rooster, so I took my fingernail and I just kind of rubbed where each of the edges were, and I used my scissors and I just cut the edges as close as possible, and then I am going to decoupage that on the front. I used a little liquid patina. I pulled that top portion back, laid down the liquid patina, rubbed and smoothed that top piece out, pulled up that bottom, added a little liquid patina there, and did the exact same thing and smoothed out all the wrinkles. And then after that, I let it dry very thoroughly, came back with that little sanding block and just sanded off the top and the bottom to make a nice crisp, clean edge. And then this project was finished.
So that's a wrap for box 3. So what did you guys think? I had so much fun. I don't give myself a lot of time to flip the items. We do our lives on Wednesday night. I bring the box out during that live. We go through it. We decide what we're going to do with the item. We have yet to redonate anything. There were a couple items that people were like, redonated, and I'm like, there was a reason I bought it. We are gonna flip it. So a couple of the items that I had in the box to flip for today's video, I actually put into a different box for spring, like a spring flip. So that will be coming in a couple weeks. Next Friday, the next 2 Fridays are going to be 2 more boxes of like basically thrift flips like you got today. And then the next 2 Mondays, I am going to be doing a furniture flip. So I am trying to definitely hold myself accountable, do 1 furniture piece a week and get a ton of items flipped every week. I have been working diligently on my craft room, which became a complete storage area. I did not realize I had those capabilities of packing so much stuff into such a small area. But my goal is to have that completely cleaned out by January 31st. I am going to give my membership group a tour of the whole space on the 31st. And then during a live, probably the following week, I will be giving all my viewers a tour of that space. So I can't wait for you guys all to join me it would be over on Facebook that I do my lives every Monday and Wednesday, and then a video here on YouTube every Monday and Friday. So you guys have a great weekend, and thanks so much for following along. And if this is the type of channel that you guys like, go ahead, hit that subscribe button and turn on your bell notification. That way, when I do release a video, you'll be notified. Well, have yourself a great weekend, and we'll see you Monday. Bye.